What's your true, unexplained story of being in a place that shouldn't exist? When my brother and I were 10 and 12 respectively, our family went on a hike through the cemetery and into the woods not far from our house. My brothers and I would explore these woods every day, even camped in them before. We knew it like the back of our hands. Anyway, as the family hits our usual spot by the creek halfway through Brother 1, and I said we'd be back in a few, we wanted to wander off further up creek. So we did. We came across a very large hill we had never seen before. It was littered with what looked like someone's worldly possessions, as if they turned a house upside down, shook out the contents, took the house, and left. There were tons of painted X's on the trees showing someone intended to cut them down at some point. We poked around for a few when we thought we heard our mom hollering at us. So we turned tail and walked maybe 20 feet back down the hill to where our parents were. The entire encounter was maybe 45 minutes long, on our end. As soon as our mom saw us, we got the beating of a lifetime. We had actually been gone almost 4 hours. She never saw us walk up any hill and remembered seeing us meandering down the straight path by the creek, not turning up a hill that was 20 feet away. She and her husband and our other brother combed the woods for over 4 hours, screaming our names, and couldn't find hide nor tail of us. We pleaded our case and even tried showing her the hill. Surely she was messing with us. So we stomped up to the turnoff for the hill and it was gone. Nowhere to be seen. For years, we explored the woods, determined to find that fucking hill. We covered miles and miles of off-path woods. As we got older, we mapped it out. To this day, that hill does not exist. We never found it again. Never found the weird furniture, toys, clothes, and other household items that were scattered across the hill. And never met anyone in the area that had a clue about the hill. We probably just wandered way further than we meant to, but I always found it weird that we never found the hill again. Many years ago, myself and two of my best friends decided to go for a day of mountain biking at Snowshoe in southern WA. Now, this was way before the days of GPS, so we were kind of doing this by some half-assed directions and an old map. But the point is, we got very lost. Sometime along the way, we ended up in this very tiny little town, and we figured we would ask for directions. It was absolutely deserted. I'm talking not a single soul to be seen anywhere. We parked the truck and split up looking for anyone. Now this was at around 9:10 a.m., so not exactly the ass crack of dawn, mind you. We went into the post office. Nobody. We went into the only bar in town, which was unlocked, unattended with music playing, but not a single soul present. We went business to business to business and walked the streets, and after about 25 men finally found one old guy who just seemed to appear out of nowhere in the middle of town walking alone. The first question we asked his wasn't even for directions. It was, "Where the hell is everyone?" To which he replied, "Well, I guess folks round here don't get up much till round noon." We asked him for directions to Snowshoe, and he pointed to the road we came in on and said to go that way about 10 miles and make a right, and we will find the interstate. We left quickly. We all had a very bad sense of unease about the whole thing. As we left, we were about 5 miles down the road and hit a lady dressed up in a state road uniform standing in the middle of a very long straightaway holding a stop sign. When we approached her, she turned the sign from slow to stop. We asked what was going on. She stated that there was road construction ahead. We told her of what just happened, and she just kinda laughed and said those people in that town are kinda strange, but let it slide. So we actually started talking to her, waiting for a line of traffic to come by from the opposite direction. We actually ended up talking to her for about 45 min to an hour, just shooting the shit. Kinda got lost in the convo. Not one single vehicle ever approached from the other direction or behind us. Eventually, she said, "Well, I guess it's clear now, and y'all can go ahead," and slowly turned the sign from stop to slow and motioned for us to go ahead. We went straight ahead. The only direction you could possibly go for the next 30-some odd miles, and didn't see any signs of construction, state road workers, or maintenance going on at all. She had no vehicle. We figured she was a flag woman dropped off by some crew up ahead. After the encounter with the town and this woman, we had enough and called it quits. We turned on the interstate as soon as we found it and headed north and home. Every single one of us still remembers this whole encounter in vivid detail to this day. I asked my friend about it actually about 3 months ago at this wedding. and it still freaks him out to no end. This took place when I was 13. No one in my family will acknowledge it happened. The only ones who would cave to my great-grandpa have unfortunately passed away. No one will give me the time of day about it. My family has a cabin in Cook's Forest, Clarion, PA. Cabin was built by my great-granddad and has expanded a bit over the years, but has a nice little nook at the bottom of a long dirt road off the main road and down a hill. There are a few other properties around, but most are up and off on the dirt road. Only one is down the hill, and only halfway at that. It's not modern by any means. No internet, cell service. The TV still has dials you have to twist to get to watch a DVD. It's very rustic and I love it. The property halfway down the hill is visible from any part at the front of our cabin, which is where the kitchen window, parking, porch, and fire pit are. For as long as anyone can remember, it's been this abandoned lot that had what was once a cabin with a concrete basement. The cabin was built on a hill, so half the basement stuck out from the hill, but the remaining part was crumbling. It also was at the fork where we would ride our ATVs to get to the fire break. So even though it could have been creepy, it was a very common and familiar sight. Until one Memorial Day, which is when we opened the cabin after the winter, and a large part of our family would go to the cabin for the long weekend to spend time together. Everyone would usually get there through the early evening, and then all come together for my great-granddad's dinosaur pancakes for breakfast. The highlight of my single-digit to preteen years. So I wake up, expecting to smell pancakes and hear chatter from the older members of my family down in the kitchen. But nothing. I assume I've gotten up too early and go downstairs to use the bathroom and then go back to sleep. Looking back, the whole upstairs was just mattresses with an aisle between them. I should have noticed that most beds were empty. I get downstairs and see all the adults outside, and I go out to say good morning and demand my T-Rex pancakes. I walk out and see all my family adults in a kind of semicircle facing an older man and a woman I didn't recognize. I assume this is some adult situation, so I go back inside to wake up my cousins. But not before looking at the clock on the microwave and seeing that it's about 3 p.m. Now, I loved the cabin. I doodled the cabin itself, 4-wheelers, and the area around it for months leading up to Memorial Day weekend. I was usually up at the ass crack of dawn because I was so damn excited to just be there. Sleeping until 3 p.m. was not in any way normal. I wake my cousins up, and by the time they all mosey downstairs, the adults are all back inside. Everyone is pretty silent, but then great-grandpa fires up the stove and gets us kids excited for dino cakes. So all seems normal. I was there with one of my aunts and my uncle, no parents. And my aunt is pretty close in age to me and was for sure the cool aunt. So when I saw her pale as a sheet, I went to ask what's wrong. She took me outside and pointed at the aforementioned abandoned and crumbling property. In its place was a sprawling cabin mansion, parking area full of SUVs and the coolest looking 4-wheelers my 13-year-old self had ever seen. Aunt tells me that the owners had come to say hi, the couple I saw earlier, and invited us over to hang out with their nieces and nephews, as they were having a Memorial Day get-together just like us. Me, having zero thought besides awesome 4-wheelers, almost ran to the house, but my aunt caught me and rather forcefully reminded me of my dino cakes. I conceded and ran back inside, to an atmosphere so thick with tension that even my undeveloped brain, thanks Dr. Mom, could detect it. The oldest of the adults were acting normal and playing around with us kids, but something was very off. I finally asked what the hell was up, and my aunt bonked me in the head and asked if I had seen that massive cabin mansion last night. Last year, the year before. We'd come to the cabin every few weeks until December. Did I see any construction? Well, no, but they invited us over and they have cool 4-wheelers. Aunt Beth, come on. A resounding no from multiple family members made my emotional girl self almost flee and cry, until my grampy, a 6'7" hulk of a man, got down to my level and explained that he felt there was something weird going on. He said the couple didn't act right. I assumed that meant they were rude, and that we should just keep to ourselves this weekend. I agreed, and we went about our day, all adults keeping us occupied with activities either inside or behind the cabin. We get ready for bed when I see my great-granddad, WWC vet, who had the only bedroom on the first floor, loading 3 shotguns, handing one off to my grampy and the other to my uncle cool aunt's husband. To my shock and awe, my Grammy pulls out a bedazzled Glock from her purse. I go to bed with images of my little Grammy taking down a bunch of bad guys with her shiny pistol. I wake up the next day to the smell of pancakes and the sound of adults chatting downstairs. I'm sad because today is when we have to pack and leave, but things seem back to normal, so I'm very glad. I run downstairs, note that the clock says 7:30, but ignore the weirdness and sit in front of a plate of dino cakes that I dig into, while asking my aunt what time we have to leave. Leave? We don't leave until tomorrow. Wait, what day is it? It's Saturday. We just got here last night. I notice just a bit of doubt in my aunt's eyes that I know something is up, and I run outside. The abandoned lot is back to its decrepit state. I resolve to brush it off and enjoy my ATV riding and forget about everything pretty quickly. It wasn't until I got back to school and was called to the main office where they asked why I wasn't at school on Monday. I told them that today was Monday. What the hell are they talking about? Nope, it's Tuesday, and my absence was unexplained despite several calls. I skipped school frequently to my parents, divorced, neither of which were at the cabin. So either my family played the trick of all tricks on me, or I'm living in an alternate universe where I can sleep into the afternoon. Like I said, no one will even remotely entertain a conversation about this incident, so I'm left telling my fellow listeners about my family's conspiracy against me, lol. This happened in the mid-90s, a time before widely used cell phones and GPS. My 2 best friends and I, freshly able to drive, decided we would head out on a Saturday to a water park in southern Missouri, about a 3-hour drive from our hometown in northwest Arkansas. We had never been before, and just used road maps to get there. We had pretty fantastic time, but as the sun started to reach the tree line, we thought we ought to head home. It's about 7 o'clock, and we miss a turn, but my friend Paul, who was navigating, said not to worry, another turn was coming up that would get us there just as fast. The next turn took us from detoured to completely lost. By 8 o'clock, we are on a road that seemed to be lacking in informative road signs and 0 lights. We finally see a gas station and are relieved to get some directions as well as some gas. My friend Taylor and I go inside while Paul pumps the gas. We come inside, and a very friendly old man in his early 60s who gives us a very large grin and says, "Wheel, hello there." It was very Foghorn Leghorn-esque. Looked like an extreme hillbilly, but very pleasant. We explained that we were needing gas and wanted to fill up. He explained that he was about to shut down for the night, but would be happy to oblige us. He then said something I'll never forget. "You have to make haste, though. Tonight is buffer night." Taylor and I looked at each other and shared an awkward look. We asked him if he could point out our location on the road map. While he was finding it, 2 people entered the shop from the back and called out for the old man. He said he was up front. The 2 approached us, a man and a woman, and at first looked confused, then, as though hit with an epiphany, they smiled. They asked the old man, "Are these the guests tonight?" He shot them a look and said, "No, these are some lost children." The way he said children caused the hairs on my neck to stand up. Not sure why. They looked at us and said, "The 3 of you should make haste, because tonight is buffer night." 2 things scared the shit out of me right then. The first being, how did they know about Paul pumping gas out front when they came from the back? And the second being that they repeated the old man verbatim. We clarified the directions to get back on a main highway and paid for the gas without waiting for change. Taylor and I booked it out at the gas station to find Paul already in the passenger seat. When we got into the car, we were nearly airborne from the speed we took off. Before we could say anything, Paul told us about how 3 men from across the street stood under a tree just watching him. He waved, but they didn't move a muscle. We just drove as fast as we could until we got back to the highway. To this day, I will still have a nightmare every so often about that gas station and what my imagination has twisted buffer night into being. In the 7th grade, I had a friend that lived near a beach on a bay of Lake Michigan. One day in early May, it reached 70 degrees, nearly unheard of for that time of year in northern Wisconsin. My two friends, including the beach friend, excitedly rode our bikes down to the beach to maybe dip our toes in, expecting still frigid waters, and then tan for the rest of the afternoon. The water, though, was surprisingly warm, like bathwater warm. In this particular area of the bay, the water was shallow for about a half-mile out, and we joyously splashed around, wading deeper and deeper until we were about chest deep. As we dunked each other and swam with abandon, I started to feel sick. Bad headache, nausea, wobbly. Just then, my other two friends mentioned that they also felt sick. We headed back to shore, nearly crawling by the time we got out. The three of us collapsed under a tree and fell asleep for 2-ish hours. When we woke up, we talked about how weird it was. I dipped my toe back in the water and it was freezing cold. To this day, I have no idea what was in there. I do know that there is a chemical plant in town that used to manufacture things like Agent Orange, and that their practices were known to be less that environmentally conscious. I have never touched that water since. My grandparents had a big farm when I was growing up, and all of the grandkids would help work it over the summer when we were out of school. Anytime we saw a rabbit, we were supposed to get it with the hoe or grab the shotgun. I was around 12 or so when I saw a little rabbit in the beans, and I didn't want my grandfather to see it, so I tried to chase it off. Followed it into the brush on the land, and for whatever reason I just kept following it, because usually I'd lose sight of them pretty quickly once they hit the brush. Kept following it until I found what was clearly an old barn ruin. These are pretty normal to happen upon where I'm from, and they're fun to look around inside, so I went in. It was weirdly kept up really well with antique tools in great shape and fresh hay. I worried I had crossed into our neighbor's property, so I hightailed it out of there. I asked my grandfather about it, and he said our land went way far past what I had described, and I couldn't have left our land in the short amount of time I was gone. So he followed me out there and we couldn't find it. I checked every summer I worked there and never found it again. Not creepy, but it always drove me crazy where that stupid barn went.